The screaming echoed through the marble halls of Blackstone Industries like a battle cry from broken hearts. 8-year-old Emma hurled her tablet against the floor-to-ceiling windows while her twin brother Ethan kicked over a potted plant, soil scattering across the pristine white carpet of their father's corner office. Another nanny had just fled in tears, the seventh one in 6 months, leaving behind only her resignation letter and the lingering scent of fear. Marcus Blackstone loosened his silk tie and rubbed his temples, watching his children destroy everything within reach. At 34, he'd built a tech empire worth billions, could negotiate million-dollar deals in his sleep, and commanded respect from Fortune 500 CEOs worldwide. But these two small people, his own flesh and blood, left him feeling more helpless than he'd ever been in his life. "That's enough!" he shouted, his voice cracking with exhaustion. The twins froze for exactly 3 seconds before Emma launched a stapler at the window and Ethan began systematically emptying his father's desk drawers onto the floor. The truth was brutal and simple. Marcus didn't know how to be a father. When his wife Sarah died in that car accident 2 years ago, she'd taken with her not just his heart, but any semblance of warmth or patience he might have possessed. Work became his refuge, 18-hour days his escape, and his child Rena, God help him, had become strangers who looked exactly like the woman he'd lost. Every nanny came with glowing references and child psychology degrees. They lasted anywhere from 3 days to 3 weeks before the twins' calculated chaos wore them down. Emma, with Sarah's wild auburn curls and defiant green eyes, had perfected the art of silent treatment punctuated by explosive tantrums. Ethan, quieter but equally destructive, had developed an uncanny ability to disappear for hours, sending entire security teams into panic mode. "Mr. Blackstone?" His assistant Jennifer peered through the doorway, her usual composure cracked. "The agency called." They're not sending anyone else." Marcus stared at his children, who had moved on to finger-painting the windows with what appeared to be yogurt from somewhere. "What do you mean, not sending anyone else?" "Apparently, word has gotten around. No one wants to work with." She gestured helplessly at the chaos. "They've blacklisted us, sir." That night, after the twins had finally exhausted themselves into sleep, Marcus sat in his study nursing a glass of scotch and staring at Sarah's photograph. In it, she was laughing, her arms wrapped around 2 chubby-cheeked toddlers who gazed at her with pure adoration. Those same children now looked at him with something between indifference and outright hostility. "I don't know what to do anymore, baby," he whispered to the photograph. "I'm failing them. I'm failing you." The next morning brought fresh disasters. Emma had somehow accessed the building's fire alarm system, sending the entire 40th floor into evacuation protocol at 6 a.m. Ethan had barricaded himself in the executive bathroom and was flooding it with industrial soap dispensers. By noon, 3 executives had complained, building security was at their wits' end, and Marcus was seriously considering homeschooling if such a thing was even possible when you worked 16-hour days. It was Jennifer who first noticed the change. "Sir," she said, appearing in his doorway with an expression of confused wonder, "you need to see this." Marcus followed her down the hall, expecting to find some new catastrophe. Instead, he found his children sitting quietly in the break room, actually eating lunch together while a slight man in janitor's coveralls methodically cleaned the coffee station nearby. "Who is that?" Marcus whispered. "Ben Martinez. He's worked here about 3 years, night shift mostly. I've never seen him interact with the kids before, but..." She trailed off as they watched Ethan actually say please while asking for more juice. Ben Martinez was forgettable in the way that people who spend their lives invisible often are. Medium height, graying hair, clothes that had seen better days but were meticulously clean. He moved with the quiet efficiency of someone who learned not to draw attention to himself, and when he spoke, it was in a soft voice with just a trace of a Spanish accent. "Emma was telling me about her art project," Ben said when Marcus approached. "Very creative use of color." Marcus blinked. Emma hadn't told him about any art project. In fact, Emma hadn't told him anything beyond "I hate you and go away in months." And Ethan here is quite the architect. He built an impressive fort in the bathroom earlier. "You mean when he flooded it?" Marcus asked, still processing the fact that his children were sitting still and appeared to be calm. Ben's dark eyes met his with gentle understanding. Sometimes we build walls because we don't know how else to protect ourselves. Over the following days, Marcus found himself watching Ben more carefully. The janitor never sought out the children, never made grand gestures or tried to entertain them. He simply existed in their orbit, cleaning and organizing with the same steady patience whether they were screaming or silent. When Emma threw her lunch across the room in frustration, Ben quietly cleaned it up without comment or lecture. When Ethan hid under desks, Ben worked around him, occasionally humming soft melodies that seemed to calm the boy's frayed nerves. "How do you do it?" Marcus finally asked one evening, finding Ben restocking supplies while the twins colored quietly nearby. "Actually coloring, not destroying." Ben paused in his work. "Do what, Mr. Blackstone?" "They listen to you. They're peaceful around you." The older man considered this. "My own children, they went through some difficult times when their mother and I divorced. I learned that sometimes the loudest behavior comes from the quietest pain." Marcus felt something twist in his chest. "What did you do?" "I showed up, every day, even when I didn't know what to say or do, especially then." Ben's voice was gentle but firm. "Children, they don't need you to be perfect, Mr. Blackstone. They need you to be present." "But I don't know how to." Marcus gestured helplessly. "I work 18-hour days. I have board meetings, international calls, deadlines that could affect thousands of jobs. And they have two hearts that are breaking a little more each day. You're not there to help them heal." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow, not because they were cruel, but because they were true. That weekend, for the first time in 2 years, Marcus cleared his schedule. No calls, no meetings, no emails. He found the twins in their playroom, a devastated landscape of broken toys and half-finished projects, and sat down on the floor among the wreckage. "I want to tell you about your mom," he said quietly. Emma looked up from the tablet she'd been aggressively tapping. Ethan emerged from behind an overturned bookshelf. "You never talk about Mommy," Emma said, her voice small and accusatory. "I know, I should have." "I was." Marcus swallowed hard. "I was scared." "Scared of what?" Ethan asked, creeping closer. "Scared that if I talked about her, it would hurt too much. Scared that you'd see me cry and think I wasn't strong enough to take care of you." "But we want you to be sad about Mommy," Emma said, her green eyes filling with tears. "We're sad about Mommy." "Why aren't you sad with us?" And there it was, the question that shattered something inside Marcus's chest. He pulled his daughter onto his lap, reaching for his son with his other arm. "I am sad, baby girl. I'm so sad. I miss her every single day." "Then why did you go away too?" Ethan whispered against his father's shirt. "I didn't go away, buddy. I'm right here." "No," Emma said firmly. "You're here, but you're not here. Not like Ben is here." Marcus closed his eyes, understanding flooding through him. Ben had done something Marcus had forgotten how to do. He had seen his children not as problems to be solved or reminders of his loss, but as human beings worthy of presence and patience. The transformation didn't happen overnight. There were still tantrums, still difficult days when grief overwhelmed all of them, but Marcus began leaving work at 5 instead of 9. He started eating dinner with his children instead of at his desk. He asked about their days and actually listened to the answers. When Emma had nightmares, he held her until she fell back asleep. When Ethan built elaborate blanket forts, Marcus crawled inside and pretended to be whatever character his son assigned him. Ben continued his quiet presence, never intrusive but always available. He taught Marcus that children needed consistency more than perfection, patience more than solutions. When the twins acted out, instead of losing his temper, Marcus learned to ask, "What are you trying to tell me?" 3 months later, Marcus stood in his office watching through the window as Ben pushed Emma on the swing set that had been installed on the company's rooftop. Gardena and other change Marcus had made, transforming the sterile corporate space into something more family-friendly. Ethan was nearby, carefully watering the plants they'd planted together. "Mr. Blackstone?" Jennifer appeared beside him. "The Johnson Group called about the merger proposal." "Tell them we'll discuss it Monday." "I promised Emma I'd help her with her science project tonight." Jennifer smiled a real smile, not the polite professional mask she usually wore. "She's lucky to have you." "No," Marcus said, watching his daughter's face light up with pure joy as she soared higher on the swing. "I'm lucky to have them." That evening, As Marcus helped Emma build a volcano for her science fair project while Ethan narrated an elaborate story about dinosaurs, he realized something profound. He hadn't solved his children's problems by becoming a perfect father, he'd healed their family by becoming a present one. Ben appeared in the kitchen doorway. Having finished his evening cleaning rounds, the twins immediately ran to hug him, their faces bright with the kind of uncomplicated love that had been missing from their lives for so long. "Ben," Marcus said, standing up from the kitchen table covered in paper MA tilde copyright and paint, "I have a proposition for you." The janitor raised an eyebrow. "I'd like to offer you a position as our family's live-in caretaker. The pay would be substantially more than your current salary, full benefits, your own apartment in our home. The twins clearly trust you, and—" Marcus paused, swallowing his pride. "I could use someone to help me remember how to be the father they deserve." Ben was quiet for a long moment, his weathered hands gentle as Emma leaned against his side. "Mr. Blackstone, I appreciate the offer, but I don't think that's what your family needs." Marcus felt his heart sink. "I understand if you don't want to. What I mean," Ben said gently, "is that you've already learned the most important lesson. You don't need me to be their caretaker. You need to trust yourself to be their father." "But they respond to you. They listen to you. They listen to me because I listen to them. But more importantly, they love you because you're their papa. I'm just the guy who reminded you all how to see each other again." 6 months later, Marcus stood at the back of the school auditorium watching Emma perform in the spring concert and Ethan receive an award for his artwork. Both children kept looking back at him throughout the ceremony, their faces glowing with pride, not because he was successful or wealthy, but because he was there. Ben still worked at Blackstone Industries, though he'd accepted a promotion to facilities manager and had started a program teaching other employees practical life skills. The twins visited him regularly, sharing stories about school and friends and all the normal childhood dramas that Marcus now handled with patience instead of panic. The real miracle wasn't that a janitor had tamed 2 troubled children. The real miracle was that a broken father had learned to see his children's pain as a reflection of his own, and in healing them, had found his way back to the man Sarah had fallen in love with, the man who understood that success meant nothing if you had no one to share it with. That night, as Marcus tucked his children into bed, Emma grabbed his hand. "Daddy, are you going to stay here until we fall asleep?" "Of course, sweetheart." "And will you be here when we wake up?" Marcus kissed her forehead, thinking of early morning meetings he'd already rescheduled and conference calls that could wait. "I'll be here, baby girl. I'll always be here." As he turned off the lights and settled into the chair between their beds, Marcus understood that Ben hadn't just done something no one else stared at. He'd done something Marcus had forgotten was possible. He'd chosen to see 2 hurting children not as problems to be solved, but as people to be loved. And in doing so, he'd given a family the greatest gift of all, the chance to find each other again.